Drives down and throws it down. Bases loaded. 2 out. Hard hit into right. Back at the wall. Tie game. Big Poppy.
No icing. For the first time in 39 years, the Boston Bruins have won the Stanley Cup.
Anything possible! Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Kicking It with Kruse. I'm your host, as always, Ben Kruse. Thank you all for joining, making I'm 6 and MI6 the network of tonight, and for my show specifically. I know it's a late one, but I appreciate everyone for joining in and kicking back. We might not have any of our hosts, Isaiah Leon or Jake Gonzalez, for tonight, so Michael So, which is fine. Totally understand. If we do have some people, then yeah, we'll make sure to have them on, and we'll have a lot of fun doing that. We'll have a lot of fun regardless. So, but it's just going to be a fun hour. It's just going to be Week 1 NFL tonight. We're going to save the other stuff and more NFL stuff on Thursday. Make sure to join tomorrow night as well, as we have Extra Point tomorrow. Me, Laura Antonio, and Isaiah Leon. We will go through our Week 1 reactions. Mike, I'll be going tonight with, and much more. So, before we get started, like I said, though, feel free to have any questions, comments for me right there in the comment section. Do my best to get through a lot of it. But just a friendly reminder, it's just going to be NFL tonight. So that will be the case on that. So without further ado, let's quickly go to our NFL segment, which is essentially going to be Week 1 and Week 1 only. So I have to say specifically, Week 1 was definitely great as advertised. A lot of great games, pretty much to kind of kick off our season back on, which was very exciting. Obviously, I call this overreaction week, especially after the first week. You have a lot of teams specifically that, are going to probably be there by when it's all said and done. And, they lost the first week of the season. And then you also have some teams that won that might not go as deep as maybe you anticipate, or might have been an upset specifically. That's why football is such a great game, because it's the pretty much the unexpected. But I'm going to go through pretty much a lot of the games. So tonight, obviously, go through my Patriots game and that reaction. We'll talk about that for sure. And then, of course, the big breaking news that happened, which is very unfortunate, that happened in Monday night's game between the Jets and the Bills, which I think really headlined a lot from this past weekend in the worst way possible. Just absolutely, utterly crushing. So we'll go through that as well on tap. But like I said, guys, feel free to put your questions in, comments, everything NFL related tonight. We'll have Extra Points tomorrow on the MI6 network. Make sure to follow, like, and subscribe to our comment if you guys enjoy my video for tonight, and much more. So, so we'll just pretty much go through it. So, the Thursday night game to kick off the NFL season was between the Lions and the Kansas City Chiefs. This obviously was the reign ceremony of the Kansas City Chiefs as they opened up with the Lions. And the Lions were a team specifically last year that really blossomed onto the scene, headlined by Dan Campbell. And, they really were a team that I think a lot of people kind of grew on to liking. This is a good team from top to bottom, specifically. Jared Goff, I think, has really found a great home there. Amon-Ra St. Brown is probably one of the most underrated receivers in football. I mean, I absolutely love his game. And then that defense, headlined by Aiden Hutchinson. I mean, that defense specifically is growing to becoming a much better group. And at least I know for this first game specifically, but they really kept their ground in this game specifically against the Chiefs. And really in this game specifically, it was close. It was really, really close. And the Detroit Lions, they pulled off this upset. They went into Kansas City. A lot of people didn't expect to see the Lions go in and beat Kansas City. I don't think many people did. But, they made it happen. And they pretty much came away barely, but a win to win against the Kansas City Chiefs by the final of 21-20. Jared Goff was 22 of 35 for a touchdown, 253 yards passing. I think Jared Goff's going to have a pretty good season with the Detroit Lions. Like I said, he's going to be doing a lot of great things over there. He had a really good start to the year last year and the end of last year with the Lions team. And I have the Lions win the division. I still think that group's going to be really, really good. And we'll see specifically kind of where things take them. So Patrick Mahomes, he had 2 touchdowns. He did have a pick six. The pick six really wasn't his fault specifically. It was tipped off of Brian Branch, who is a rookie from the Lions. Really good draft pick they got. And they took it to the house. And, it just was a game specific. The Chiefs really struggled offensively. Obviously, they didn't have one of their main guys, Travis Kelce, who was hurt. He looks like he's going to be back, though, for week 2, which we'll get into week 2 games on Thursday. So make sure to tune into that. So they pretty much were headlined by Sky Moore, Marcus Valdez-Scantling. They also have receiver Rashee Rice, who had a touchdown. And then they also had a couple tight ends who try to do what they can to replace Kelsey's production, but it really wasn't enough. I mean, Gray made a couple plays, but it really came down to some of the final plays that the Lions made a little bit better than the Chiefs did. I mean, the Chiefs receiving core was brutal in this game. I mean, obviously the Lions won. They get the credit that they deserve, but the Chiefs couldn't catch the ball at all. I mean, Kadarius Toney, I mean, obviously I don't want to, harp on one kid, but he was a massive reason why they lost that game. I mean, he had drops after drop after drop. It was crazy how they just kept him out there. And they asked Mahomes after the game specifically if you still trust Toney, and he was a massive player in the Super Bowl, right? It's just probably just a really bad game from him, but that game turned out to be a close one, 21-20 Lions over the Chiefs. So that was a big win for the Lions, at least to kick off the season. Let's go into the Sunday slate now, and we'll start with the Eagles and the Patriots game. And I did talk about a little bit on this on my Facebook Live after the game was over on Sunday. I'll try to actually do a couple of those Facebook Live post games for you guys if you guys want to. And just kind of give my overall deep thoughts of the Patriots games. And obviously, I'd still plan to have a show with Laura Antonio here on StreamYard. Obviously, if you guys have any questions about that, feel free to message me privately. And me and Laura are still trying to kind of figure out specifically the logistics of that. But we're really looking forward to having another season of doing that specifically. The Patriots, I thought, they came up short in this one. But I don't think a lot of people picked them to win anyways it was. And, before the game happened, they had 2 guys out specifically that I thought were going to be massive in terms of the game plan offensive for the Patriots. Cole Strange and Mike Onwenu, 2 of their main offensive guards were declared out in this game after practicing for a little bit. They're 2 of their main starting offensive linemen, and especially against a team like Philly, a really good defensive line. This was a specific matchup that just didn't seem like it was going to be favoring the Patriots at all. defending champs in the NFC title game this past year for the Eagles. They just won the Super Bowl as well. And, it just didn't look on paper, but I got to give credit where credit's due. And I was hopeful that I was going to be wrong on this and have the Patriots make it a game. And early on, it didn't seem like it. It seemed like specifically kind of what I was expecting. And I was essentially hoping for the worst in this one, is where, the Eagles had a big start to this game. They obviously got the ball first to start off the first quarter. They drove down the field. But the Patriots were able to stand their ground defensively. I'll talk more about the defense in a little bit. But the defense specifically held their ground that first drive. LA kicked a field goal. That was that 3-0. And then the Patriots got the ball back. One of their drives, they were marching great down the field. A couple passes down the field, and then Mac Jones mistimed his throw to Kendrick Bourne. It was a little bit rainy, but just there's no excuses specifically for it. Darius Slay, big play Slay as they call him, had the interception. He took it to the house for 70 yards. The Eagles are up 10-0 just like that in the first quarter. And then the next drive for the Patriots, they had Zeke Elliott in. Of course, Zeke Elliott's Patriots debut. And Mac tried to throw a screen past him, in which he caught, but then he fumbled it. And the Eagles got it back, and the Eagles were able to capitalize on short field. And so Jalen Hurts found Devontae Smith and made it 16-0 just like that. Wasn't ideal whatsoever, especially against a team like Philly, to go down and have two crucial mistakes early on in the game. But then the Patriots were able to go back in this game, and thankfully for their defense. The defense really held this ground. Obviously, Christian Gonzalez, a rookie corner, Jonathan Jones obviously has been around, but they're back inside. I can tell for this year it's going to be really, really strong. And I talked about that after the post game on my Facebook Live after the game was over, in terms of the Patriots and Bill Belichick essentially made a great defensive game plan in terms of how to be able to stop this Eagles offensive attack, because they're extremely dynamic. They run the ball really well. They pass the ball really well. And obviously they have the quarterback that runs the ball really well. And one of the biggest things about the Patriots defensively, in which they struggle with, is their inability to stop the run and contain mobile quarterbacks. And that's something like Jalen Hurts, which I was worried about and coming into this game, that I thought they did a really good job. Obviously, I think the playing conditions obviously kind of were in favor of the Patriots in a way, because, they obviously were kind of able to maybe held Jalen Hurts a little bit more, in the pocket, probably more as he maybe thought. But regardless of the fact, really good job by the defense specifically. So 16-0, like I said, early, ugly. But the second quarter, the Patriots are able to kind of find a little bit of rhythm, and especially with Mac Jones. The Patriots able to get a drive with about 4:39 left in the second quarter. Mac Jones hit Hunter Henry for a touchdown, made it 16-7. Defensively, like I said, after the short touchdown opposition they gave with Devontae Smith, Patriots defense able to keep them 3-and-outs. They were keeping them in it. Patriots got another 3-and-out after the Hunter Henry touchdown. They got the ball back with about 30 seconds left. They were in field goal range for the Patriots. The best they can do, obviously, right before the Tom Brady ceremony, was to at least get points, make it at least 6-point game, but a touchdown would be amazing. The best case scenario. And the best case scenario happened. The Patriots here, fantastic finish to that first half. At the really ugly part of the first half. And Mac Jones hit Kendrick Bourne, who had a really good game in this one. That was the first of two from Kendrick Bourne. And the Patriots made it 16-14. And then once you kind of thought about that, you're like, okay, this is anyone's ball game. Third quarter is just a field goal that happened with Jake Elliott. It was 19-14. And then fourth quarter happened around. Jake Elliott had a couple field goals, made it 22-25. And then Patriots also had the inability to convert as well, too. But we actually have somebody that is coming on here for a little bit, my good friend Isaiah Leong. Isaiah, obviously, you had some of your frustration about the stuff that happened last night. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But first of all, like I said, Isaiah, how are you doing? It's glad to have football back. And obviously, I'm actually going through my team right now as we speak. So obviously, if you want to talk more about that, by all means, you can as well.
Hey Ben, what's going on, man? Glad that you're doing a show tonight. I decided to make an appearance on the program, even though I probably will have to go to bed in about 45, 50 minutes from now because I gotta get up hella early tomorrow morning. But man, I got a lot of stuff I gotta get off my chest. It's kind of a good coincidence in a way that my screen, I don't think you guys can even really see me because I'm outside. Just went out for a walk, but it's good that my screen is black because it kind of describes the mood for me after last night because I talked so much. I was hyping up the Jets. I was saying Super Bowl, AFC Championship, AFC East champions, easy title for Aaron Rodgers. Super team in New York, yada yada yada. I even drafted Aaron Rodgers in like 3 of my 4 fantasy leagues that I'm in, and my backup quarterback is either Brock Purdy or I have Jared Goff, and then the other one, I'm stuck with Bryce Young. So now he's my top quarterback in that league. But I mean, everything last night. I mean, it was supposed to be the coronation, not only for the Jets but for the city of New York. And just, I mean, Aaron Rodgers comes out with the American flag like he's Sammy Sosa running that out there. And then, I mean, it was supposed to be a magical night, but I mean, instead it turned really dark early on. And all my takes about the Jets, all my takes about them going to the Super Bowl, all the bets that I have with friends, all the fantasy football leagues that I'm in, basically all screwed today because of Aaron Rodgers tearing his Achilles and him being out for the year. And I mean, what a shame. And I'm pretty sure we'll probably get into it later on because it's a massive topic. But I mean, what a shame, especially with that Jets team, the defense looking like a championship defense, Brees Hall looking like he's so back, Garrett Wilson looking like one of the best receivers in the NFL. Just a darn shame. And but hey, I mean, my Niners played well. Brock Purdy came back he played very good in his return. I was proud of what I saw, and you're right. It's good to see football back. It's great that we could talk some college football, NFL, and baseball as well. Like my A's just went into Houston and took 2 out of 3 from the Astros. So, it's been like good and bad though as a sports fan for me. But looking forward to tonight's show.
Definitely. So I feel like it's like I said before you came in on. It's going to be just straight week 1 recap for football, and then extra point is going to be tomorrow. So obviously, for those people that are not joining in, make sure to join into that stuff tomorrow with me, you, and Lauro. And then we got more stuff on Thursday night. As obviously, I'll talk about kind of a regular kind of show for me. Is I'll get into the regular stuff with baseball, college football week 2 recap. Game picks for NFL week 2. I mean, there's going to be so much to do. I mean, that might have to be at least 2 hours. We're going to get into a lot of fun stuff on Thursday. But we're going to get a lot of fun stuff in tonight because it's going to be all week 1 stuff for football from the NFL. Now, Isaiah, obviously, we'll talk about the Rodgers stuff in a little bit. We'll talk about your Niners. But obviously, like I said, I was getting into the overall Eagles-Patriots game. Isaiah, in terms of the overall with the Patriots, and we'll talk, me and Lauro will get the chance to talk about it. I got to say this about the Patriots. I was encouraged. I was pretty encouraged specifically with the circumstances specifically where they had none of their top 2 offensive linemen. They were around 16-0 early on in terms of it looked like it was going to be a blowout. They kept Jalen Hurts under the 200 yards passing. The rushing attack for the Eagles was non-existent. The Patriots defense was locked in. Mac Jones over 300 plus yards against arguably very good defense. The running game wasn't great for the Patriots, but the biggest thing about it, Isaiah, was the defense was so good that the only touchdown that the Eagles scored offensively was off of a turnover that we had. The defense specifically I think it was going to be good this season, but it might be a lot better. And now, obviously, with the unfortunate news to Rodgers, but the division now, I mean, I look at it right now, and I know it's the first week, but and I know that obviously the Eagles are going to be there when it's all said and done deep, down the road in the NFC. I still think it's going to be a great team, but I got to be encouraged for the Patriots despite the loss. I hate moral victories. I really do. I hate those. But if you told me specifically after that game Sunday, especially being down 16-0, I would have been a lot more pissed if they just got blown out and they just didn't show up. But they were resilient. They made it 16-14. Brady was in the house. They at least made it presentable for him. That ceremony was absolutely crazy, by the way. It was awesome. I wish I was there, but and there's also something too about the Patriots that I'll talk about after the game too regarding to Brady. But your overall thoughts on this Eagles-Patriots game?
My prediction going into the season was that I thought your Patriots would start 1-7, and Belichick would either be forced to retire mid-season, or it was going to be his last season. And that prediction still might come true because the schedule for you guys is just super, super tough. But I do agree with you. I think that for you as a Patriots fan, I think you should feel encouraged just because you guys were down 16-0. It was not looking pretty at all in that first half. Mac Jones was awful in that first half. The Eagles defense was playing lights out, especially their secondary with Darius Slay returning that pick six. But then something changed. Something clicked. Bill O'Brien changed up the game plan. You could see it in that second half. Mac Jones looked a lot more comfortable. The Patriots woke up. But I think that, honestly, Ben, this is an indictment on the Philadelphia Eagles. This shows that the Philadelphia Eagles are truly one of the most overrated teams in the NFL, especially their offense. Jalen Hurts had the same issues that we've been talking about for like the last 3 years. And that is, if you keep him in the pocket, if the running game is not working, then he's going to show his flaws that he has as a passer. And he definitely showed it against the Patriots on Sunday afternoon. The Eagles were lucky to escape with a victory. New England could have easily came and won this football game and stole this game away from the Patriots. From the Eagles. But credit goes to New England for fighting. Credit goes to Bill Belichick and those guys for not giving up. Yeah, even though it looked really bad. The Patriots defense, they were outstanding in this game, especially in the second half, just holding Hurts and that what could have been an explosive offense down. But for the Patriots, I still worry about them because if you look at the rest of the teams on their schedule, especially the next 7 games, right? You got the Dolphins. I know the Jets are going to have Zach Wilson starting, so you're probably going to beat them a couple of times. I don't think New England will start 1-7.
You never know.
Yeah, that is true. The Jets defense, they got a very formidable defense. Their wide receivers, Wilson, looked really good. But I'm more optimistic today than I was on Wednesday or Thursday when we made our predictions about the Patriots and our NFL predictions. I'm more optimistic today about the Patriots being better than expected because I think that Mac Jones, whatever Bill O'Brien did to change up that game plan, it clearly worked. And I think that they're going to continue to do that because Bill O'Brien knows that Mac Jones is very comfortable doing what they did on Sunday. And, that was the best I think we've seen Mac Jones look in a very long time. Mac Jones did not look good last year under Matt Patricia.
I'm telling you, Isaiah, the coaching. I'm telling you.
The coaching. Exactly.
It matters. People want to say quarterbacks do matter, which it does. But if you essentially have a defensive coordinator doing the game plan for a quarterback, what do you think's going to happen, right? How many games specifically last year did Mac Jones have over 2 touchdowns, let alone 3? Not many. And he had 3 touchdowns in the first game of the season against the Philadelphia Eagles defense, headlined by Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean. Those guys are freaks, right? So I got to say this, like I said, it's really a positive, at least to me, because they're going to be in a brutal schedule, like you said. And, I think specifically the secondary is one of the stronger suits on the team, and they're playing against teams next couple weeks here against really good offenses that have really good number 1s and 2s for receivers. And I think that if the Patriots offense and the defense could be able to at least be, decent, they could hang around against these teams. I'm not saying that they're going to win every single week, but if they can limit turnovers, and I looked at in terms of the team stats before coming on here, the Patriots pretty much want everything outside of one thing, and that's one thing to take pride in terms of winning games: the turnover battle. If you don't win the turnover battle, I always tell Laura this too, because last year when me and Laura did our prediction of the Patriots, well, they got to win the turnover battle, and they didn't win the turnover battle here today or on Sunday. So, but like I said, they played really, really well. Brady is going to actually be going into the Patriots Hall of Fame next summer. They announced it at halftime. That was one of the biggest things. I almost cried. I'm not gonna lie. They're waiving the 4-year plan for him to go in, and they're gonna be doing it in the stadium next year. So the place is gonna be absolutely crazy. I don't care how much it's gonna be specifically, but that was one of the biggest things. It was really cool to see Brady back and doing his thing. But the Eagles did take it by the final score 25-20. The Eagles are going to be playing on Thursday Night Football against the Vikings, and the Patriots are going to be playing in the Reds at home on Sunday Night Football against the Miami Dolphins. We'll talk more about those on Thursday. Isaiah, we're going to talk about next there's just so many games we can get into. Let's save the best games kind of for later on. We'll talk about the Lions-Chiefs game because obviously the Thursday night game, I didn't get the chance really to talk much with you about that. I said that the Lions are going to win the division. But I think that the Chiefs, obviously, people are like, oh, it might be asterisk because they lost because without Travis Kelce. I got to say that specifically. You play who you play with, right? There's no excuses specifically about it. I know that obviously you picked the Lions, I think, and people are laughing at you. And I got to say this specifically. Week 1 is the unexpected. You just don't know specifically what usually happens each week. And I think specifically that, the Chiefs lost, the Bengals lost, the Bills lost. All essentially the 3 teams that are probably going to be there at the end, they all lost. So, that's why we always have the fun with the overreactions in week 1 because there's so many teams specifically that are going to be there by season's end. But what's your overall reactions in this game specifically? I thought the Lions, were able to kind of make some plays at the end to make obviously this massive win, maybe one of the biggest wins in their franchise history and so on. And then in terms of the Chiefs, they're going to be fine. Obviously, Chris Jones he got his contract figured out, so he's going to be back probably next week against Jacksonville, which is going to be a great game, by the way. And Travis Kelce seems like he's going to be back. So obviously, Kelce runs through Mahomes. Obviously those 2 guys are click. I'm not saying they're Brady Gronk good, but they're pretty much close to something like that. It was just clearly shown that the receiving core for the Chiefs, yikes.
Yeah, my thoughts on that game was I'm not really that surprised that Kansas City lost because I thought going in that the Lions should have been the favorites, especially the circumstances in that game with Kelce being out and Chris Jones being out. I don't think Kelce being out was that. I mean, it was a big blow, obviously, but it wasn't as big of a blow, I felt like, as Chris Jones being out. I mean, that was a massive blow for me because their defense was already not that great. Their defense was always that defense that bent a lot but didn't break. They would give up a lot of points. They give up a lot of yards, but the offense would always bail them out, and then the defense would get like a timely stop at the end to end up rescuing the team and winning the game for them. So I thought that with Chris Jones not being there, them not being able to generate pressure on Goff, them not being able to stop the run, I thought that was going to be a big blow for them because Detroit's a really good rushing team. They love to run the football. They have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. And you just looked at it. I mean, towards the end, Chris Jones being there would have definitely helped because Chris Jones would have definitely been able to help bottle up guys like Jahmyr Gibbs, also David Montgomery as well. I mean, Detroit just kept pounding it down the Chiefs' throats at the end, and they just couldn't stop it. And I think that, you could see that I felt like the momentum changed when Mahomes threw that pick six. The Lions were kind of out of sync. The Chiefs were riding high with their Super Bowl banner going up onto the top of Arrowhead Stadium. Like, you could just tell, like, if the Mahomes didn't throw that pick six, that ball does not go off of Kadarius Toney's hands and into the arms of Brian Branch, I think we're sitting here today with the Chiefs not only winning, but them dominating the Lions because the Lions looked very out of sync in that game. They needed a spark. They couldn't really get anything going, especially when it was like it was 14-7, but it felt like it was 24-7. That's how drastic it felt like. So when Mahomes threw that pick, I mean, it was crazy. Like it ignited the Lions, it woke them up, and it tied the game, and it gave Detroit a shot, and it kind of made Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs kind of squirm and go like, oh no. We don't have Kelsey. We don't have Jones. The Lions, we just gave them a touchdown there with the pick six. We might actually be in trouble. And of course, they were in trouble after Mahomes threw the pick six, because Mahomes just, I felt like, did not look comfortable after he threw that pick six, and he kind of looked very squirmy in and out of the pocket. Not being able to trust his receivers. Without Kelsey being there, the defense not being able to get off the field. So Detroit, I mean, proved that they are for real. They proved that, Dan Campbell, what a hell of a coach that guy is. I mean, unbelievable. Going into Kansas City on ring night and winning that game, I mean, absolutely crazy. But I think this is more of like Kansas City, besides the fact that Kelsey and Jones needs to come back ASAP. They also need to get better receivers. Like you cannot win with just Travis Kelsey and a bunch of bums as your wide receivers. I think that they need to get at least a legit threat right now as the wide receiver position, because if they don't, when you go up against teams like the Bengals, or you go up against teams like Buffalo, or if the Jets can somehow solve their quarterback issues and get a legit quarterback there, they're going to shut down Kelsey. They're going to zone in on Kelsey, and then they're going to force Mahomes to throw it to Kadarius Toney, or throw it to, Sky Moore, or some of these receivers that he has that aren't really that good. And then he's going to be exposed, and that's where I feel like the other teams will then have the advantage, because Mahomes will be out of sync with those receivers. So I think Kansas City, they definitely need to go out and get a wide receiver, even with Kelsey coming back, because you're going to need it come playoff time.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Obviously, it was a close game, a really good game to start off the season, specifically there. So it looked like we don't have Isaiah anymore left. So I appreciate Isaiah coming on there. Hopefully, looks like he's going to come a little bit back for a little bit. But we got through the Thursday night game. We got through a decent amount of Patriots game we discussed about. Let's go into next the game that Isaiah represents the team, and that's the San Francisco 49ers. They took on the Philadelphia Eagles. That was on Fox. The San Francisco 49ers showed pretty much on paper why they're going to be one of the best teams in football. They could be arguably the best team in football when it's all said and done, but they essentially kind of previewed it a little bit. They took on the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh, and man, it was all 49ers in this one. 30-7 was the final. Brock Purdy put on an absolute clinic in this one for 19 of 29, 220 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and no picks. The rushing attack, of course, headlined by one of the best running backs in football, Christian McCaffrey, 22 attempts with 152 yards rushing with a touchdown, long touchdown run. And then Brandon Ayuk, who I think is going to be really blossoming onto the scene. He's been a great receiver. Kind of gets a little underrated, but then specifically because they have obviously Deebo Samuel, they got George Kittle. Ayuk is somebody that is really good as well too, and he was the leading receiver in this game this past Sunday. He had 8 receptions for 129 yards and 2 touchdowns, including a couple of really nice touchdown balls by Brock Purdy in this one. On the other side, Kenny Pickett, this is, I think, a guy that's going to have a really good career with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But this one, he was pretty much behind a lot of this game, and, it was a really tall task, especially against arguably the best defense in football. And he threw two turnovers in this one, kind of early on in the game. And the Niners really didn't kind of look back either. I mean, he did throw for 232 yards. He did have a touchdown to Pat Freiermuth. Allen Robinson had 5 catches, newcomer for the Steelers. And then Najee Harris was only he was held in check really, 31 yards, 6 attempts, no touchdowns. So 49ers pretty much were showed on paper. I mean, that was an absolute clinic by them. And they actually had defensively 5 sacks on Pickett. They did a really good job. Javon Hargrave, who was one of the good pickups that they picked up there. He had a sack. They also had, let's see, Kerry Hyder Jr., defensive lineman, with a sack, and then Drake Jackson, defensive lineman. He had 3 sacks on this one. So they did a really good job, to limit the offensive attack from Pittsburgh. And they did a really good job. They held that team in check specifically. And so, yeah, so obviously we'll talk more with Isaiah when he comes back about that game. But the Steelers, the Steelers fell to the Niners 30-7. San Francisco next week will go to, let's see, they play. They're playing against the Rams, and then the Steelers will be taking on the Browns. So 49ers will stay on the road. Pittsburgh will stay at home for another week against Cleveland. All right, so we got through the Patriots game against the Eagles. We got through the Niners game against the Steelers. We'll talk more with Isaiah about that one. Let's go through the Browns-Bengals game. This was probably the one that I was very shocked about specifically. This was a game that I think the Bengal fans want to forget. This was a putrid game from the Cincinnati Bengals, a team that's come with a lot of high hopes, extremely great quarterback in Joe Burrow, who got absolutely paid the day actually of the NFL kickoff. Crazy enough. We'll talk about that specifically with Isaiah as well too if we have time. We'll talk a lot of stuff specifically on Thursday, whatever we don't get into tonight. But Bengals Browns, always a great showdown. AFC North. Bengals going to Cleveland, and obviously the Browns headlined by Deshaun Watson. They have Nick Chubb. They have Mark Cooper, and obviously their defensive line headlined by Myles Garrett. The Bengals obviously just had nothing going really in this game. Joe Burrow actually had arguably one of the worst games of his career. I mean, it was really, really ugly from the start. He only got sacked twice, but their first half, they just never got it clicking, never got involved. A lot of high throws, just not a lot in sync. And, week one, there's a lot of that we kind of saw this past Sunday where, so some people, I guess you could say it's kind of like an extended preseason in a way, which it's still not. It's the first game that, obviously means something. But you can just obviously tell a lot of people are rusty. A lot of quarterbacks are rusty. We'll talk about, obviously, the Bills. Jets, obviously, with Josh Allen. He was rusty really, really bad. But Joe Burrow was 14 of 31, a 52.2 QPR rating, which is ugly, 2.6 yards average a pass. So just taking into account, that probably will never happen with Joe Burrow again this year. 82 yards passing. So regardless, though, that's unacceptable. That is really, really bad. Really, really bad. You got to give credit to Cleveland, though. I mean, Cleveland was just the better team. I watched a lot of that game in that first game, and the Browns did pretty well against the Bengals. They've had really good success against them in the past. And the Bengals team on paper offensively is a lot better than that Browns team, but the Browns had a really good game plan, and that's obviously why you play the game, and that's why week one is a lot of the unexpected. So, Jamar Chase had 5 catches for 39 yards. He was their leading receiver. Teague and Steven got a catch in this one on Sunday. He got 8 targets, but not a single catch by T. Higgins. He's a guy that specifically is going to be a massive part of their game plan. He is a baller. He could be arguably number one at a lot of places. So obviously he got to step up and be a lot better in this one. He'll be a lot better next week against Baltimore. Cleveland did a pretty good job, though. I mean, Deshaun Watson had played great. He was 16 to 29 with the touchdown and the pick. It was really just their defense. The defense was able to get, just limit the Bengals to very limited in terms of passing yards. Like I said, Joe Burrow had one of the worst days passing, and it was obviously really wet out there in Cleveland, but it just wasn't a great game by the Bengals. Cleveland was a much better team. 24-3 was the final in that one. Jacksonville against the Colts, an AFC South showdown. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence and that Jaguars team, they're hopeful that they can take the next step. In terms of the Colts, they're a team specifically that is getting a new quarterback. As a young kid in Anthony Richardson, who I think is going to have a lot of promise. And this game specifically, it was really kind of headlined by the offensive attack from the Jacksonville Jaguars, which I think is going to be really, really good all season. They are going to be favored to be the AFC champs, South champs this year. We'll see specifically how things go for that. I think the Colts specifically could be a very interesting team. I don't think they're going to be great, though. I think that they're going to be kind of a team, though, will kind of stay even keel. The biggest thing is they just don't have a running game right now. They need to have Jonathan Taylor back. He's going to be out for the first 4 weeks of the season. Final score in this one was 31-21. Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence was 24 of 32, 241 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Calvin Ridley came back, and Calvin Ridley is back more than ever. Obviously, he's going to be the number one to Trevor Lawrence. He obviously was missed last year with the gambling situation. And he had a day. He had 11 targets, 8 catches, 101 yards, 12.6 yards average catch. And he had a touchdown. Zay Jones also had the other touchdown. That offense is going to be really good. And obviously, Travis Etienne is a great running back, and he had a touchdown this one to add to the fun over there. Anthony Richardson's debut with the Colts, I guess you could say it was decent. It was a mixed bag. 24 of 37. He had a touchdown, but he did throw a pick. So obviously that seemed like the turnover was crucial. Michael Pittman did have a touchdown catch. The biggest thing about the Colts is outside of Michael Pittman receiving, I just don't really think there's a lot there. Really in football, you need to have at least two good reliable offensive weapons, specifically at your receiving core. I just don't really see much there specifically. I mean, they might have some guys that could step up, obviously, but if they don't have Taylor, they're going to have to really rely on Richardson to do a lot, and obviously Pittman to really carry them a lot as well, too. So in terms of the Jaguars, they'll be taking on the Chiefs at home next week. It's going to be a great game for the Colts. They're going to be going to Houston to take on the Texans. And speaking of Houston, the Texans, they played in Baltimore this past week against the Baltimore Ravens. Now, I picked the Ravens to win this one and to win in a runaway. I guess you can say in a way that the Ravens, I guess you could say we're in a runaway. I mean, I predicted them to kind of win by more than 2 scores, in which they win by 16. So I guess you can argue with that. In terms of CJ Stroud's day, it wasn't awful. It wasn't bad. He didn't throw a touchdown, but he didn't throw a pick. He had over 200 yards actually passing. The Texans are just going to be a really young up-and-coming type team. It's just going to take a while for them to kind of be where they want to be. And, in terms of the Ravens, I mean, Lamar Jackson, he had no touchdown this game. He did have a pick. Mark Andrews was out in that game, so I think that was a massive blow for them. Obviously, they didn't really get much out of their running attack, but Justice Hill had 2 touchdowns in this game. Really tough news in terms of the Ravens' running attack. J.K. Dobbins left the game early, and it seems like he's going to be out for a long, extended amount of time, which is massive. Massively, it sucks for not only the Ravens, but it sucks for football because he's an absolute fun player to watch. And then with the newcomer, Zay Flowers, he had a massive game in this one. He had 9 catches for 78 yards, targeted 10. And then Odell Beckham Jr., first game as a Raven, he had a couple catches. He had 2 receptions for 37 yards and 3 targets. And obviously Bateman and likely obviously as well too. And we also have Isaiah back here. Isaiah, we're actually kind of going through a couple games here. I got through the Niners Steelers game already. We'll talk about that with you now if you want to. We also talked a little bit about the Jaguars Colts. We won't get to obviously all of these games specifically for tonight, but we can kind of save, I guess, some of the big ones. Obviously, we'll get into the Jets and we'll get into the Cowboys Giants because my goodness sakes. We'll obviously probably save the Raiders Broncos game for James when he comes back this week. So we could do that if you want. But let's talk about now the your Niners and Steelers game. Obviously, because we have you here now. The Niners, obviously, like I said before you came back on here, that they pretty much showed a early glimpse of what this team could be. Just a absolute a force to be reckoned with. I guess you can say it best. Offensively, very balanced. Defensively, very balanced. They took on a pretty good Steeler team. I think that's going to be good throughout the rest of the season. But the Steelers, like you said, Isaiah, Kenny Pickett's was a young quarterback. He's pretty much bound to have turnover, especially against a team defensively like the Niners. But man, it was all headlined by Brock Purdy. I mean, that guy specifically showed out first game already. 220 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 to Brandon Ayuk, who had a monster game. Christian McCaffrey, a long running touchdown, and obviously 5 sacks on Kenny Pickett. So you just kind of look at it. The 3 things you got to do specifically in football: not turn the ball over much, play great offense, play great defense. It's obviously not going to be pretty and great every single week. But, when you look at specifically a great one on paper and you play 3 facets of the game right, that's a type of outlook that you want to see. And obviously the Niners did a really good job with that in the first game.
Ben, the 49ers sent a loud and clear message to the entire NFL and all the people that cover football and the entire sports world that I think right now the 49ers are the best team in not just the NFC, but the NFL. I mean, they look so balanced. They look so explosive, like you mentioned. They look like a force to be reckoned with on defense. I mean, that defense looks so great against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I don't want to take anything, away from Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's a really, really good team. I know a lot of people are pushing them off, like, oh, this is just an example of how Pittsburgh was so overrated and how they're going to suck this season. I beg to differ. I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers, this was just the 49ers just being that good, that much better than the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like if the Niners played the Bengals, if they played the Rams, if they played any of the teams that they have upcoming on their schedule, I think that they would probably do this to that team. So the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be fine. They're going to be good. In fact, I picked them to win the AFC North this season. I think I still stay by my prediction. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to win the AFC North, and Kenny Pickett is going to be fine. That defense might need a little bit of tweaks at the trade deadline because Cam Hayward is going to miss a couple of weeks with an injury. I guess now Deontay Johnson is also going to miss some weeks because of injury. So, that's going to be kind of a blow for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I think Pittsburgh's going to be fine. I think they're going to be in the race. Throughout the season, never ever count out Mike Tomlin. That's how great of a coach he is. Yeah. And so, I think Pittsburgh's going to be fine. But I think for me, for the Niners, this was the Niners just showing the world that, hey, we're the best team in the NFL. If Brock Purdy had been healthy last NFC Championship game, I think the Niners would be sitting here right now with the 6th Lombardi Trophy in their case. I mean, that's how great of a team that they are. Purdy proved that he's not a fluke. I mean, he was 19 of 29. He threw for 229 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. I think this was like the 8th straight game, every game that he started, besides the one that he got injured, obviously. But every game that he started and he's finished the game in, he's had at least 2 touchdown passes in each of the games that he started. So it's a very significant feat. But Purdy from the start. First drive of the game, first play of the game, Kyle Shanahan calls a pass play. He throws a strike, I believe, to Brandon Ayuk. And then it just seemed like he was just in sync with Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle throughout the entire first drive. I mean, he did not miss a single pass that entire first drive. He went 5 for 5. Yeah, it was a clinic. It was like he just went strike right down the field. For the touchdown. It just seemed very easy for Purdy in that first drive. The Niners, and then Purdy was great, throughout the entirety of the game, making smart decisions, knowing when to throw the football away, knowing when to use his legs to run for a first down like he did in that fourth quarter and slide, make that healthy decision. So Purdy looked very, very comfortable. He looked very good. He didn't show any ailments of that elbow injury, which was good to see. Every time a Steeler defender came close to hitting Purdy in the arm, I just cringed because it just brought me back flashbacks of Hassan Reddick hitting Brock Purdy in the elbow and knocking him out for the remainder of that game. But Purdy was terrific. I expect Brock Purdy to have a great season. I think he's going to be in the MVP conversation this season. But then you look at guys like Christian McCaffrey, who had a terrific day. He ran the football 22 times for 152 yards and a touchdown, including that amazing 65-yard burst right up the gut to start the third quarter. That was huge for the Niners. But I think, Ben, the best takeaway from this game, besides Purdy, besides Ayuk, especially on offense, was Brandon Ayuk. I mean, that guy he's in line for a breakout season, man. That guy is about to show the NFL that he's one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. And I mean, he's already one of the best route runners in the NFL, and he's just so underrated. And his ability to get open against one of the best defenders in football, and it's just very, very impressive. And I really think he's in line for a big year with Brock Purdy and with Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers because, he's Purdy's top receiver. He's shown that he's Purdy's favorite when it comes to whomever Purdy likes to throw the football to. The defense, like you mentioned earlier, they were great. Fred Warner was all over the place. I mean, he was an absolute monster. The defensive line, I mean, everybody was involved, corralling Pickett, making him stay in the pocket, making him uncomfortable. I mean, Ben, at one point in that game, the Niners had an advantage over the Steelers when it came to yards on offense, 199 to 1 yard. The Pittsburgh Steelers at one point in that game, I think it was early in the second quarter or in the middle of the second quarter, the Pittsburgh Steelers only had 1 yard of total offense.
That's insane.
I know, absolutely insane. It was like some 1985 Bears stuff or like 2000 Ravens stuff that was going on in Pittsburgh. But the guy I do want to shout out for the Niners defense, though, is Drake Jackson, the defensive lineman out of USC, the second-year defensive lineman. When I made my NFL bold predictions before Thursday's Chiefs-Lions game, one of my predictions was that Drake Jackson was going to be a breakout stud for the Niners and that Drake Jackson was going to be top 5 in the NFL when it comes to sacks. And I know as ludicrous as that might have sounded, but I mean, Drake Jackson, when the Niners first got him in the draft, I was like, holy moly, how the hell did this guy fall to the Niners? Because I watched a lot of USC games, living on the West Coast. So I watched a lot of USC games, and Drake Jackson was like Chase Young, was like Nick Bosa for USC. I mean, he was the predominant pass rusher. He was the guy that was, wrecking havoc all over the place. You could double team him, you could triple team him, and he would still manage to get to the quarterback. So when he fell to the Niners, I was like, we have Bosa, we have Bosa, we have Armstead and those guys already. We added Javon Hargraves. And you add Drake Jackson, who was a beast at USC that nobody really got to see because USC always played a lot of their games at 7 p.m. Pacific time, 10 p.m. on the East Coast. Like, that was a great steal of a pick by the Niners. And, he had 3 sacks only last year in limited time of play. But, I mean, with him being in the starting lineup now and him opposite of Bosa and with him being in an NFL weight room for a year, I think that guy's about to take off and show that he's one of the best defensive linemen in the entire NFL.
Yeah, we'll very well see specifically how that goes. We also talked about Isaiah really quickly. A couple other games. Obviously, maybe we can kind of mix two because obviously trying to to save some time here. When you weren't on, I talked about the Browns. I was going to say Bills, Browns Bengals game, and then the Jaguars Colts game. Now, the Browns absolutely obliterated the Bengals, 24-3. Awful game from Joe Burrow. Awful game from that team specifically. But it's just for the Bengals specifically, they're going to be fine. I mean, I just think specifically it's just a great game plan from the Browns. I think the Browns also brought a new defensive coordinator, and I think that was fantastic in this one. But regardless, that was ugly from the Cincinnati Bengals. In terms of the Jaguars, Anthony Richardson, I thought had a pretty decent game, but the Colts are going to be able to go deep this year if they don't have Jonathan Taylor. They can't rely on Richardson to have a lot of their rushing yards specifically. And outside of Michael Pittman, there's just not a lot there specifically for the Colts receiving core. For the Jaguars specifically, they're the real deal, and they're going to be the real deal for a lot of the rest of the season. Doug Peterson, Trevor Lawrence have that connection for sure. Calvin Ridley obviously balled out for the first time around, and man, it's so good to see Ridley back in this game because he's an absolute beast. So I just want to go ask you specifically about those two games specifically. That Browns Bengals game, obviously I'm shocked about that score. I mean, I did not expect that score at all. But obviously that's why we play the game, So I'll obviously ask you about that game, and then of course the Jaguars Colts game.
So the Browns and Bengals, I was shocked by that result, but we shouldn't have been because the Browns have owned the Bengals in the Joe Burrow era. Like I don't know why the Browns have owned them. It just doesn't make sense, but it's the NFL for you. It's like the Cardinals when the Niners first started, the Kyle Shanahan era where the Niners were a good team and then the Cardinals somehow would always beat us, even though, we would lose to guys like Colt McCoy. We lost one time. I mean, we lost to David Blau, for goodness sake, at our own stadium. So wow. I don't know. Like, there's just some weird stuff in the NFL. Like, teams just know each other very well. They own each other extremely well. So, I mean, I don't know. I thought that, I was shocked by the result, but I don't think we should have been because the Browns always own the Bengals for some reason. The Browns defense was all over the Bengals. Joe Burrow, if he wants to last in the NFL, the Bengals seriously need to get more protection for him. I mean, the Browns were just all over Joe Burrow in this game, and Burrow did show some rustiness, especially with his legs. It just felt like he was running in mud. You could tell that he hasn't been at training camp throughout the entire season. So, I'm not shocked. I think the Bengals are going to be fine. Burrow will be fine. It's like the first preseason game for Joe Burrow and for the Bengals offense. That's what I viewed this as a preseason game. I think Burrow will bounce back with more practice and with more game action, especially now that he signed the contract. I'm glad that he signed the contract before the game because if he had played without the contract, that would have been criminal because if he had ripped an ACL or unfortunately been like Rodgers and ripped an Achilles, then all that money would have gone down the drain. So I'm glad that he's back. I'm glad that he signed the extension. And now Cincinnati's just got to keep him upright. They got to keep him healthy. And I think they'll be fine. But that defense, though, does have some cause for concern because if you look at it, the Browns were able to the Browns, they ran the football for 206 yards. I mean, when you're giving up that many rushing yards, forget the pass. You give up 206 rushing yards, that is never going to win you a football game. So that run defense by the Bengals, which was already kind of weak, it showed its flaws on Sunday.
Definitely so. And then the Jacksonville Jaguars and Colts game. Your overall reactions, if you have any, for that one.
I think the Colts are gonna be a very pesky team this year. I think they're gonna be in a lot of games this year. And I think the Jaguars, to be honest, overlooked the Colts. I think that they kind of just thought the Colts were gonna be a walk in the park because they had owned the Colts in the past several years. The Colts were breaking in a new quarterback. It was in Indy. I thought the Jags didn't really, especially that first half. I thought the Jags didn't really care too much about this game. But then they woke up. Anthony Richardson had some costly interceptions, which really cost the Colts big time in this game, which led to, I believe, 10 points for the Jaguars, which really swung the momentum of the game for the Jags. But, I mean, Trevor Lawrence was outstanding. He had 237 passing yards. The Jaguars were able to run the football very effectively. ETN, I think he's going to have a big year. He had 18 carries for 77 yards and a touchdown. He was also used extremely well by Doug Peterson and Press Taylor in the receiving game as well. With 5 catches for 27 yards. He's the guy that Trevor Lawrence really trusts. But I think the biggest takeaway, though, was Calvin Ridley. That connection with him and Trevor Lawrence is going to be like Josh Allen to Stephon Diggs, or like Patrick Mahomes to Tyreek Hill. Like, that's going to be that type of connection. And for a young quarterback to have that number one wide receiver and then to have some complementary pieces with, a multi-purpose back and Travis Etienne, the Jaguars are going to be very scary. And I could see that being in the running for the top record in the AFC when it's all said and done.
They're definitely going to be a great team for sure. And I'm excited to see Trevor Lawrence in year 4. Wow. Feels like he just came in and he's just absolutely balling right now, which is awesome. Now let's obviously go to a couple other games. We obviously kind of won't go through some of the crappy games. We'll kind of go through some of the good ones at least, and then we can kind of recap the other ones if we want to on Thursday. Let's talk about the Dolphins-Charger game. My goodness. Obviously, I didn't really get the chance to really watch most of that because of the same time as the Patriots-Eagles game. But I was keeping my tabs on that game, and man, oh man, that was an absolute shootout of a game. 36-34 is the final of the Dolphins and Chargers. And I think personally that this is kind of a low-key little bit of a rivalry right now. This is – thank you. You're 3 for Trevor Lawrence. But this game was just back and forth, left and right. There was no – it felt like the TCU and Colorado game just all over again. Just the epic fireworks back and forth. But obviously, in terms of the Patriots, they got this Dolphins team next, and hopefully that they'll be ready to go. Because last year, remember, the Dolphins came out crazy hot. They were really coming great. Remember that week 2 against the Ravens? I think they were down by like 3 scores, and then came back. They won that game, and they were flying hot before obviously Tua got hurt. The thing about this Dolphins team, Isaiah, if Tua stays healthy, the sky's the limit for this team. Especially now because Rodgers obviously is out because of the stuff that happened, unfortunately. Obviously, with Buffalo, they might take a step back down. Patriots might potentially step out. But this Dolphins team, if Tua's there specifically between Waddle and Hill, it's one of the best, arguably, receiving cores out there. And then their defense. I mean, their defense wasn't great on Sunday, but they're going to still be good specifically, and obviously with Vic Fangio. I think just speaks volumes specifically of how good the Chargers offense could be with, obviously with Herbert. But this obviously was probably the biggest high-scoring game already in the first week of the season with 2 really good offenses. And I'll get your reaction specifically to this one. Obviously, Tua and Herbert both had great games.
This was an unbelievable game. I think that honestly, besides the Bills and the Jets game, this was the game of the week. I mean, this was just fireworks from both sides, back and forth, back and forth. You're right, Ben. I think the Dolphins definitely right now are the best team in the AFC East, because after the performance by the Bills yesterday, that really did not show a lot of confidence or give me a lot of confidence in the Bills moving forward. the Jets just lost their quarterback, sadly. So Zach Wilson, even though I like Zach Wilson, I don't think he can really lead that championship roster to where they want to go. Plus, they got a lot of tough games on their schedule moving forward. The Dolphins are legit. They got one of the best offenses in the NFL with Mike McDaniel. Tua looks like, he was bothered by injuries a lot last year, but he looks like he's finally healthy. They got Tyreek Hill there. They got Jalen Waddle there, two of the best receivers in the NFL. They got, great running game with Raheem Mostert and those guys. The defense, I think, will be better because for a Vic Fangio-led defense, historically, Vic Fangio's defenses aren't really that good in year one. They're always great, starting out great in year two, and number three is when they start to really blossom. So I think if this defense can get its act together and learn the Fangio system faster than the teams that Vic Fangio has coached has learned it in the past several years, or in the past in historically terms, then I think that for the Dolphins, I really think the Dolphins could honestly be the best team in the AFC and be a perennial Super Bowl contender. I think that's how good this roster is, but it all really depends on Tua, and it depends on how fast can Vic Fangio fix that defense. Because, if you're playing against the teams like the Jets or the Chiefs and they're able to score point for point against you, you're gonna win. You're gonna win some games, but you're not gonna be able to win the big ones when it matters the most if you can't stop anybody. So the Dolphins can score with the likes of anybody, but they just can't stop a lot of teams, and that's my biggest concern with the Dolphins. But I want to see this game, Ben, in the AFC divisional playoffs or in the AFC wild card, because you get Dolphins versus Chargers, this hectic shootout, Tua versus Justin Herbert, the weapons with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams on one side. You got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle on the other side, Vic Fangio, Mike McDaniel on one side, just Brandon Staley with Kellen Moore on the other side. That would be one hell of a playoff matchup. And, I also give credit to the Chargers. I think Kellen Moore, he was the right hire for their offense. He looks really good calling plays, especially the downfield shots. I feel like he was held back in Dallas, and now we're about to get the unleashed Kellen Moore. And I think the unleashed Kellen Moore, you're going to see a scary offense in LA.
And you're going to see a scary Justin Herbert too. I think that's really going to help them as well, because Justin Herbert feeds off of the deep ball. He's one of the best deep ball passers in the game. Isaiah was also looking before we go into the next game. Each team had 30 first downs in this game. So that just comes to show specifically that those both teams can just move the football out well. Let's quickly go into one of the last 425 slot games before we go into the Sunday and Monday night games to conclude tonight's program. Let's go to the Packers-Bears game. I know we talked about this game. I picked the Bears, but I'm going to say this specifically. I maybe kind of underestimate a little bit of Jordan Love. I really think that this kid is the real deal. You obviously go outside of Aaron Rodgers' footsteps in Green Bay. He's coming to year one, and I know it's obviously the first game, but he really played well against Philly last year, against the Eagles. I remember coming in for that one. They didn't even have Christian Watson in this game specifically. One of the best receivers. I think they're wide receiver one for this year. This Packers team, man, I think could be a really underrated type team in the NFC to watch for, I think, throughout this season. I think I maybe underestimated them a little bit specifically. In terms of the Bears, Justin Fields, 216 yards, one touchdown, one pick. Kind of a very Justin Fields-like type game. Not great, but not special. The thing about Fields is I love Fields, but I feel like he has to if he wants to take the next step, he has to limit turnovers. That's been kind of something that's in the past of a guy that's mobile. He has to be able to limit the turnovers. Jordan Love had 3 touchdowns this game, 9.1 yards per pass. So obviously he was very effective with his ability to pass. He had 245 yards, 15 of 27. It's only about 55% completion percentage, but he was fantastic in this one. Packers went 38-20, and the "I still own you," the Packers to the Bears, is still in effect despite Rodgers not being there right now. It's always a great game in that one. Quickly, just your overall thoughts on this one before we get into the Sunday night, Monday night games.
Jordan Love is a superstar in the making. That's my overall thoughts on this one. I was very high on him going into the season. I thought he was going to prove everybody wrong, and he was going to look poised, and he was going to look like a star. And he looked like a star, all right. I mean, this guy looked very good. He looked very confident. He looked very comfortable out there. And he looked great. He looked really good out there in his first start. And he did not look like a rookie. And I think a lot of these teams that draft quarterbacks should learn from the Packers and take a quarterback, even when they have an established starter, and take a quarterback like early. So you don't have to start him right away. You could just put him behind that starter, let him learn for a few years, and then let him mature, let him develop. And then once you move on from that established starter, then you can have that quarterback that you took be the guy and come in and look great like Jordan Love did. I mean, Jordan Love looked really, really good in that game. He threw 3 touchdowns. He was very efficient. He was very, very special in this game. I know a lot of people, were kind of doubting him, but I mean, he made one throw that really wowed me, which was he rose to his right and then he threw it across his body to his left for a screen pass to one of the running back, or to Aaron Jones, I believe it was, and he rumbles down the sidelines for 30 yards. He put a lot of zip on that ball, which was good enough so the defender couldn't get to it. I thought that was a very, very good play by Jordan Love. I think the Packers are definitely in great hands with Jordan Love at the helm. I mean, he looks very comfortable, like I said earlier. And, this was his first, this was not his first start, but this was his best start. And I'm very, very, if I'm a Packers fan today, I'm very happy with the way that he started the season. And if he starts like this, I mean, Green Bay is going to be very scary in the NFC North, especially with Aaron Jones there, especially with Romeo Doubs. You have, Christian Watson, who's going to be back. He didn't play in this game. Luke Musgrave is a guy that I would look out for. He's the big tight end. Matt LaFleur uses the tight ends very well. So I was very impressed by Jordan Love's first game, and I think that he's going to definitely improve, and I think he's going to be so much better, even though he put on a great performance in week 1. I think that he's going to be even better in week 2.
And what do you think of the Bears? Do you feel like the Bears had an underwhelming type game? Is there anything specifically where, obviously you said before the season that you weren't really a big believer in that team?
No, I wasn't. And I think that Matt Eberflus might be the first coach to be let go either during the season or after the season. I was never a fan of his hiring to begin with. I thought that the Bears should have went with Eric Bieniemy, or they should have went with an offensive-minded coach to groom Justin Fields and to develop him. And it has shown that Justin Fields has not been developed as a passer. He does not look comfortable in the pocket. He looks like Jalen Milroe, the quarterback out of Alabama, who basically took the snap. His first read is not open, and then he's running. And you just cannot do that in the NFL. You can do that in college, but you can't do that if you want to win in the NFL. So it looks like Fields' passing has not been developed properly. He doesn't have much protection in the offensive line. DJ Moore looked very good in his debut, but other than that, I mean, it was just a really awful debut for the Chicago Bears. The defense showed their flaws. I mean, they had a lot of question marks coming in, and they didn't do anything to address the defense besides signing Tremaine Edmonds. Despite having a lot of money, I think that the Bears are definitely going to regret that decision, and they should have done more defensively. And I think Eberflus, his days are numbered in Chicago.
All right, let's talk about the Cowboys-Giants game before we get into the Bills-Jets game. The Cowboys and Giants game, of course, I thought was going to be an absolute clinic of a game. Great game. Giants obviously coming off their pretty decent season last year, going to the playoffs, getting to at least their first round, right around 9/11. Obviously, in the honoring for that, which by the way was fantastic. We'll talk about that, and then the next game after that happened on 9/11. But man, I think that the Giants obviously are going to be a lot better team than they showed on Sunday because they can't be any worse. Scoring no points out of the whole entire game, and I mean, I obviously give Dallas credit. I mean, Dallas obviously just beat them to the max in that one. But I gotta say specifically about the Giants, that offensive line is going to get Daniel Jones killed against better elite rushing defenses if they don't address it, because Dallas is one of the best rushing defenses. Their pass rush is insane. I mean, I saw that that defensive front was pretty much in Daniel Jones's face half the time I saw him drop back. I mean, he had no time to throw. That rushing attack with Barkley, he wasn't doing much. They just didn't seem like they were ready to go in that one, not prepared. And Dallas really just took advantage of it. Really just punched them in the mouth from start to finish. Dallas looked like a team specifically that they're going to be a team that's going to roll, I think, throughout the regular season. Of course, they'll fall usually in the playoffs like they always do. But Tony Pollard's a stud. I think that obviously moving on from Zeke, obviously coming to Foxborough was obviously good for us, but he looks really good, really fresh with his legs. Definitely got the contract that he got for sure. I think he's on the tag bill. Obviously, TD Lamb's there. They obviously have Brandon Cooks, so I thought was a really good pickup for them. He always is great everywhere where he goes. Defensively, though, they were fantastic. So I'll get you overall quick thoughts in terms of this one. I think specifically that the Cowboys are going to be a great team, but I also don't think that the Giants are going to be as bad as what they were, because my goodness, that was just yikes, beyond yikes.
Ben, my biggest overreaction from this week one is that the Dallas Cowboys may be going to the NFC Championship game finally. It's not even the biggest overreaction, but Skip Bayless is going to go absolutely nuts this entire season with it. How about them Cowboys all season long? Because the Dallas Cowboys look like the best team besides the Niners in the NFC. I think we are headed to a Niners-Cowboys battle for the top spot in the NFC, just like we did back in 1995 when these two met up, and also in the 1980s when you had Joe Montana to Dwight Clark and that famous The Catch at Candlestick Park. So the Dallas Cowboys, they look really, really good. The defense looks like one of the best defense in the NFL. Credit goes to Mike McCarthy and that offense. They ran the football very efficiently in this game. Dak didn't really have to do too much. Tony Pollard went ballistic in this game. He ran the football 14 times for 70 yards and 2 touchdowns, but this was all about the defense. I mean, that defense looked so good in year 3 under Dan Quinn. They were after Daniel Jones. They sacked him. I believe they sacked him, if I'm not mistaken. They sacked him a total of 7. Really, it was 5.
7 times.
Yeah,
I'll have to go back. It was a lot.
Yeah, from what I'm reading on the NFL,
it was 7. Yeah, you're right.
For 7 times. Yeah, 7 times, 7 sacks. They 7 sacks. They forced 1 fumble. They forced Daniel Jones to throw 2 interceptions. I mean, this is why, for folks out there that don't know, me and Ben are in a wacky fantasy football league where, the defenses get a lot of points. And this is why one of our members, Ashwin, scored like 2,700 fantasy points, because his defense, from what I looked, put up 1,800 fantasy points. Like, it was insane what the Cowboys did. It reminded me of the 2000 Ravens, the 1985 Bears D. That defense was just all over the New York Giants. And you're right, if the Giants don't fix their offensive line, they are screwed, especially if they play the Niners, especially if they play other teams that have really good pass rushers and defensive line. So
Even
they got to fix that defense. And, we might even bring back that question. Is Daniel Jones the real answer at quarterback? I know they paid him a lot of money, but
yeah.
is he the real answer? Should they have given him that money? And I don't know, is the big question right now, especially when Saquon's not effective and you see when Daniel Jones has to, make magic happen, he just cannot. So I think this game showed a lot that the Cowboys right now, Cowboys and Niners look like the best team in the NFC.
Yeah, obviously that's the overreaction fun of it. But Dallas, I mean, 49ers definitely will be there at the end. Dallas definitely could be a playoff team, but they could get a lot deeper maybe than I expected. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the Giants specifically, I mean, Brian Dable, I mean, he's usually a great coach. And I mean, he did a really good job with the Giants last year. And the fact is, if you told me that they'd score no points the first game getting ready, right around 9-11 specifically, and just not showing up, I'd have been shocked. So that was really disappointing for them. But yeah, it is what it is. Sometimes it's just not your day. Let's go to the last game, and obviously, you kind of talked about that kind of right when you came on. Obviously, this was bound to potentially be one of the potentially the best game of the weekend. Maybe some absolute fireworks on 9/11. Bills Jets. Um, Aaron Rodgers Jets debut. Just kind of a lot ready to go in this one specifically. Um, and obviously they did the 9/11 tribute service, which I thought was absolutely amazing. That was just something, especially for myself specifically, living within an hour reach of the city, just kind of just taking it all in, and just really a time to just kind of remember, just really kind of remember what's been kind of going around for sure for there. But in terms of the game itself, Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, this seemed like it was going to be first in many battles. 4 plays in, he takes a sack from Leonard Floyd. He was scrambling, and he essentially goes down. Now, I obviously thought typically when you go down, you come back up, and he got back up. But then once he went back down, I knew something wasn't going on. Something wasn't right specifically, and he stood down there, and I thought to myself, there is absolutely no way. Because the Jets are just so cursed, but I'm just like, they're just I talked to myself right before the game that the Jets this whole season, please just don't do this to the gods here. And I hate the Jets, but I love, as a Patriot fan, I'm just like, I like Rodgers. I want him to obviously perform well. Want to see him play against the Patriots and on the fun stage in week 3. And we didn't even get that. Aaron Rodgers went down 4 plays in, goes on a cart, goes on essentially for X-rays, gets the walking boot on his left side. Got the MRI. Found out today, by the way, that it was a ruptured Achilles. His season is over just like that. Just absolutely heartbreaking news. This is obviously the most devastating news, of course, of the whole weekend. And I mean, for Jets fans out there, I know a lot of them around me. I just feel awful for them. I mean, obviously I hate the Jets, but just I love the quarterback of Rodgers, and of course we're now at this point in time with Rodgers is might not only be done for his time with the Jets, but his career might be fully over because he has had some injury problems in the past that he has been able to overcome. But as you're getting older and older and older, it's just hard to overcome. And people were speculating, was the turf? I know MetLife obviously has a lot of problems with turf, but you also have to take into account that J.K. Dobbins got hurt this past Sunday on grass. So I know that they were kind of talking about that as well, but it was just ugly. I mean, I saw kind of the replays about it. The doctors having some photos of it on social media. So just really unfortunate. So obviously Rodgers gets hurt on the first quarter. It felt like obviously kind of the stakes kind of went out the window there. And the game itself, it just kind of there. It wasn't as good as it was making it out to be. Josh Allen had a touchdown to Stephon Diggs. The first half, he had a 10-3. Really just wasn't a lot of juice. But then Zach Wilson, who's coming in, and by the way, is going to be the number 1 guy, which Isaiah I don't know if that'll be the case specifically, but we can go through some quarterback options out there. I'll be curious to see in terms of who you pick. Um, but the Jets Bills right at the end, man, that was crazy. It came down to the end. Tyler Bass kicked with 6 seconds left, a field goal that was 50 yards that doinked off the left goalpost and in. And Garrett Wilson had a phenomenal touchdown. I mean that catch specifically where he went one-handed and was able to get that back in. So essentially for Jets fans, it went from sorrow to just, I feel like, excitement, at least kind of the mixed emotions of a game. And obviously that punt return in OT, that Joe Buck call was absolutely fantastic. That was essentially on the day of like 9/11, obviously Rodgers going down. I mean, that was a day for Jets fans. I obviously don't like the Jets, but it's just like, how can you just not be romantic about football? I mean, people say it about baseball, but just like the ending on a specific day, specifically where New York gets remembered for a really tough time, just the Jets fans been able to pull that out. It was almost like it was like made for the football gods to kind of give it to them, because they've really been cruel to the football gods of the Jets. And obviously with the Rodgers news, it's really cruel for them because they don't even get the chance to see what it could have been for the time being. But I will say about the Jets. Their defense is elite, and it was elite last year. Sauce Gardner wasn't even great in this game, but their pass rush is phenomenal. But Josh Allen was, I don't know. Josh Allen kind of looked like old Josh Allen to me, at least in the first game. A lot of turnovers that were deep balls that he was forcing. There was times that I think it was in the first or second turnover that he chucked all the way down. It looked even like a punt, but I'm like, he had all this room to run. I'm just like, where's the old Josh Allen? I think that he obviously will come, but I'm just like, his decision making was just, and I think the Jets really have his number now. I think that when the Jets play Josh Allen, there's something about the coverages that the Jets do have against Allen where it's just like, they have his number. And Jordan Whitehead had 3 picks on it. So essentially, there are a lot of deep ball coverages. And I know that Josh Allen was saying that the reason why they lost was on him, and that's accountability. So I'm not saying obviously that the Bills are going to take a step back, but Josh Allen I think has to play a lot better. I think he will, kind of like Joe Burrow and Mahomes. But I'll get it to you, Isaiah. And in terms of, for me specifically, for replacement quarterbacks, oh man. Well, I'll get this out of the way first. And by the way, people, Tom Brady to the Jets is never going to happen. That is a far-fetched idea. That is never going to happen ever. So I'll first say that. What I do think could happen is 2 guys that could come out of retirement: Matt Ryan or Philip Rivers. I really think that those 2 guys could be out there on the table. I think specifically, though, they're going to start Zach Wilson. And I think the biggest thing about Wilson this year compared to last year, which I think is going to be good news for Jets fans, is Aaron Rodgers is going to be around the team this year to even help Zach Wilson. And you saw specifically when Rodgers was helping Zach Wilson in the preseason, you actually saw pretty good from Zach Wilson. I know obviously it was preseason, but if Aaron Rodgers can help Zach Wilson specifically now, as tough it is for Rodgers to be out for the whole entire season, it actually might help Zach Wilson's benefit in terms of, if Rodgers doesn't have many more years with the Jets, Zach Wilson's probably going to be a long-term quarterback, and it might be a blessing where it didn't seem great early on with Zach Wilson's future and his overall career. He could essentially, Rodgers could turn Zach Wilson to potentially in the draft pick that I think many Jets fans want him to make him out to be, like his playing days in BYU as a really small quarterback. So it could be a blessing potentially in disguise, but I think maybe like Nick Foles, Carson Wentz, I was even mentioning maybe Trey Lance, maybe Case Keenum. Let me think. Davis Mills, maybe, because obviously he's behind CJ Stroud. Teddy Bridgewater could be another one too. That could be somebody, a guy that's been kind of around the block. So I don't know specifically what type of route they're going to go to. I think that obviously they're probably going to announce somebody later on this week. But I'll go to you, Isaiah, specifically. First of all, the game, kind of the way it ended. Obviously, we're kind of ending our show specifically with a game that kind of was tough on a sour note. But, I think that it's just an AFC clash and just kind of tough in terms of the news of Rodgers. But overall, pretty exciting game at the end. And obviously, who do you think that the Jets are going to potentially look at for outside QB options with Zach Wilson?
Well, Ben, yesterday me and Lauro did a an emergency show called the Midnight Express because I just felt like I couldn't wait another day. I could not wait another 5, 6 hours. I could not wait another minute to get what I had to get off my chest. Yesterday was just very painful. It was very sad. It was very disappointing. It was very disgusting because I had been talking a bunch of stuff about the Jets and how they were going to win the Super Bowl, how they were or go to the Super Bowl, how they were going to go to AFC Championship at least, how they were going to win the AFC East, and like I said in the beginning of the show, how they were going to be a great team. Aaron Rodgers was going to be, renewed. I even drafted Aaron Rodgers in like 3 or 4 of our fantasy football or the fantasy football leagues that I'm in. So I was expecting big things out of Rodgers. I was expecting big things out of the Jets. And in 4 plays, it all went down. And what even hurt, Ben, was I was literally wearing this jacket that I bought in New York when I visited New York. This Jets jacket. I was wearing this. There was a picture that I snapped before the game where I was all smiling. And I was like, man, the Aaron Rodgers Jets are about to be here. The Jets are about to be back. Gang Green is about to turn the football world upside down, and it's gonna be we're gonna have a New York team. We're gonna have a New York team be great again because we all know every time the New York teams, the Boston teams, the LA teams are good, it just makes the sport so much better. And the Jets haven't been good in a long time, and this was supposed to be the coronation for the Jets because they finally got their franchise savior, who they haven't had since Joe Namath was the quarterback there back in the early 70s. So, and then it just crashed. It just all went down the drain, and now we're all kind of wondering like what if, because this Jets team, like you mentioned, they have a championship level defense. Their defense kept them in the game last night. The running game with Brees Hall. Brees Hall showed that he's so back.
Good.
Yeah, bro, he looks terrific in that game. Especially an 80-yard run. I mean, oh my gosh, like that was a hell of a run. The Dalvin Cook was effective in this game, especially running the football, catching it out of the backfield. Garrett Wilson. I mean, this guy might be a top. He might be the best receiver in the NFL because I mean, did you see that catch that he made where
it was incredible?
Zach Wilson just chucks it up there and he tips it to himself. He tips it to himself and catches it with one hand. Like that was one of the best catches that I have ever seen in my life. And I really thought that that catch was gonna be nullified. I thought it was gonna be incomplete. There's no way he made it, but he made the catch, and Buck was just like screaming, like, "Oh my god!" Like it was the most like frantic that Joe Buck has ever been in a long time. So, I mean, the Jets have really good teams. Like they've got some really good players. They got a great defense. Robert Saleh's one hell of a coach. Nathaniel Hackett is a good play caller. But now you need that quarterback. You need the quarterback, and it's a damn shame that Aaron Rodgers is gone because I think with Rodgers, I think this Jets team would have definitely went to the AFC Championship game and definitely been in contention for the Super Bowl. Because like if you look at Kansas City, we're talking about Kansas City, and their defense has holes. The wide receivers don't look great. Miami, their defense doesn't look great. Buffalo, Josh Allen turns the ball over like crazy. You look at the other teams, Joe Burrow didn't look good on Sunday. The Jets would have been the best team in the AFC because they would have had a great quarterback. They would have had a great, running game, wide receivers, and the defense as well. But now, I just don't think you can stick with Zach Wilson. Like I think that Zach. Yeah, he had that good game yesterday against the Bills, but the Jets should have won that game by at least 20 points with how Josh Allen was just turning the ball over over and over. And we'll get to
Mm.
Josh later on, but like Zach Wilson, the Jets should have won that game by 20. The fact that they only won by 6 and they had to go to overtime, like that just is very concerning for me. And that's why I said on the show that I did with Laurel last night called the on the Midnight Express, and I know you brushed off that idea when you were talking about this game. But if I'm New York, if I'm Woody Johnson, if I'm Joe Douglas, my first call right after that game would be to Tom Brady. I would say, Tom, whatever you need, whatever money, 30, 40 million, I don't care. We'll pay you 50 million if we have to anyways. Come save our team. Because, I mean, like, I know Brady is a Patriot. He's a Patriot for life. Does he want to go to New York? Probably not. But, dude, think about this. Brady can legitimately win another Super Bowl with this Jets team, and he doesn't even have to do too much. All he just does is hand the football off to Cook, hand the football off to Breece Hall, throw it to Garrett Wilson. He would have a abundance of riches of weapons, and then the defense could carry you as well. This may be the best defense he's had since the Buccaneers or even the early Patriots teams. Like, if I'm the Jets, 1,000%, I'm calling Tom Brady because he's the best option available. Matt Ryan, no, because he looked washed up in his final year with the Colts. Carson Wentz, he's like an type of an option. He always turns the football over. You know, I just can't really think of other options. Like, there's really
Minshew?
too turnover prone. I just feel like, and plus, I just feel like in New York is about stars, right? They want their stars, they want their big name, and yeah, Rodgers went down, but you need that quarterback that you can rely on. And if you're gonna move off of Zach Wilson, there's 3 guys that if I'm the Jets, I'm calling today to see what I can offer up to get him. Brady, Matthew Stafford, or the Rams. If the Rams really if the Rams really are down to move Stafford and move off of his big contract, I would even trade Zach Wilson in that package. Because, I think Matthew Stafford with that team, with that defense, with the weapons, it would be like the Rams of 2021, where I could see the Rams or I could see Stafford winning a Super Bowl with that team if he stays healthy. So, and then the last call, honestly, I would make, and this would probably be the craziest of them all, Minnesota for Kirk Cousins. Because the did not look good at all. They did not look good against the Bucs. And
really quick, the thing about Kirk Cousins, he's in a contract year for the Vikings. So essentially, if the Vikings aren't in it by season's end, you might be able to get some type of capital back, maybe at halfway. So that definitely could happen.
Well, I would trade, if I'm the Jets, I would personally trade Zach Wilson. I would trade a first-round pick because I would go all in this year because you have to. You've just spent so much money on the defense. You've spent so much money on the weapons. You signed Dalvin Cook. You'd be foolish not to go all in this year. So I would go all in. And plus, even if, let's say, Cousins does not work out, right? Let's say he leads you to the playoffs. He leads you to the divisional round, but then he gets bounced out. You get bounced out. You get Aaron Rodgers back next season. So, and even if Rodgers doesn't come back, then you can re-sign Cousins. So you would definitely have a lot of options to choose from. Plus, like you mentioned, you would have that salary cap space at your disposal, but it might cost Zach Wilson, and I would do it, especially like if you let Zach Wilson start the next couple of games. The Jets absolutely stink. They're sitting here week number 4 or week number 5 at 1-4 or 1-3. You can't punt the season away. Like, you gotta at least go for it. And if I'm the Jets, those are the veteran quarterbacks I'm looking for right now, since I think that those guys will definitely help you, get to the Super Bowl mix if you, in fact, get those guys.
One of the guys there I was going to tell you about is Sam Darnold. A reunited with Sam Darnold, where a trade where you can trade. Honestly, what if you had Zach Wilson replace Darnold, be essentially, who's your backup right now to Purdy?
It's Darnold, actually.
Okay. All right.
Darnold and Brandon Allen, but we did work out Ian Book
And the
today, which
Patriots
was
did too.
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So I mean, if the Niners looked at potentially getting Book, doesn't that maybe kind of make you think that possibly Donald could be potentially moved if the Jets are really looking out for somebody and the Jets maybe have some familiarity. The thing about that I read with Case Keenum and like Philip Rivers or somebody else specifically for the Jets is a couple of those guys have familiarity with our Nathaniel Hackett's system. So I think that they're going to try to maybe get somebody to maybe come in and that's why I think kind of like a Nick Foles type would be perfect because you can kind of learn from somebody to be a backup that has better experience. Plus, if Aaron Rodgers is still helping Zach Wilson become a coach, which he didn't have last year, that should definitely help Zach Wilson a lot in terms of his confidence. No.
I think it does, but I just think that Zach Wilson has his limitations, and I just think that he's not gonna be like that top quarterback that could lead you to either the AFC Championship or deep into the playoffs. He might get you to the playoffs, or he might get you to like an 8-8 record, or an 8-9 record, or a 9-8 record. But you're too talented of a team to be 9-8 or 8-9. So that's why I would go for these veteran options like a Brady, like a Matt Stafford, Kirk Cousins. I would throw those guys into the mix. Another guy I wanted to throw in the mix, but I heard New England signed him is Zappy. Honestly, imagine if the Jets
Oh,
claimed him. Like the Jets look
oh,
foolish now for not claiming him to be either the third string quarterback because now you would
oh.
have had Zappy, you would have had Zach Wilson. Those two guys can battle it out, see who looks better, and then you could ride with one of them. But maybe that's an option because I know Zappy is a little bit better than Zach Wilson is. He's not that turnover prone, so maybe that is an option you can look at for depth. But those are, I think, the only like options that I could think about as of right now. But maybe Darnold, because like you mentioned, the whole Book thing. Why would you work out Book if maybe something's going on with Darnold or
Right.
Allen? So that's
Mhm.
another interesting topic.
For sure, for sure. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up tonight on Kicking with Cruz. I appreciate Isaiah for joining me for tonight. Obviously, it was just pretty much all football stuff, and we're going to get into some more tomorrow. Make sure to follow on the IM6 network and as other stuff on the Extra Point tomorrow, and then my other show. This will be on Thursday night. We'll get into some other stuff. 2 hour show probably on Thursday, so make sure to tune in. Lots of stuff: baseball, college football, week 2, week 3 preview, game picks for football. James probably will come back Thursday, so we'll probably have some stuff with James, talk about the other games from week 1. I mean, it's just going to be pretty much some added stuff, plus maybe some, I said football, yeah, college football, regular football, baseball, other stuff possibly too. We'll probably all have it on that one on Thursday night. We'll have a lot of fun for that one. Before we get to opening thoughts, Isaiah, I guess we could also probably have a closing thoughts. I guess you can say this one now is my week 1 overall reactions. It's great to have football back. There's a lot of teams specifically that I thought are going to be great that pretty much showed it. There's also going to be teams that weren't great at all that are going to be right there at season's end. There's going to also be some teams that won on Sunday that probably won't be there at season end. That's obviously why it's a long season. Um, Thursday, I think we're going to do our winners and losers from week 1. And then obviously we'll translate over to week 2, our predictions and all that fun stuff. So before we get into, I guess we'll go to you, Isaiah, now with your final thoughts.
My final thoughts is what a great show this was. Great to be on tonight. Great to have football back, man. Prayers up for Aaron Rodgers for a speedy recovery, and hopefully he can continue his career because he's one of the great ones in this league. And you never want to see a guy, especially one of those great future Hall of Famers, end their career because he popped his Achilles. So definitely prayers up to him. Hopefully he makes a speedy recovery. And I would say if I had to give like my biggest reaction or overreaction to week 1, is Brock Purdy might be the next Tom Brady. And that's not even me being like a fan or whatever. Like that's me being like truly serious, because the poise that this kid showed, the confidence that he showed in the games that he started. I mean, he's doing exactly what Brady did when he first came in. But Brady was a 6th round pick and Brock was a 7th round pick. And New England and San Francisco have both slowly move them into the offense and not asking them to do too much. But the thing with a young Brady and Brock is they're both clutch. They got ice in their veins. They're both super poised. They don't really panic. Like, it's just very, very impressive. And I honestly continue to be impressed every time I watch Purdy play. And I'm like, man, I knew this kid was special at Iowa State, but I didn't think he was this special. Like, I didn't think he was this good. And it's just crazy to me that, that he's with, not only is he with the Niners, not only is he our starting quarterback and our franchise quarterback, but the pace that he's on. I mean, it's really crazy to watch. And he's doing things that no other young quarterback right now is doing. And he's establishing a trend in the NFL, because if Purdy does end up, even having half of the success that Brady has, you're going to have all these teams now drafting their franchise quarterbacks, or trying to draft your franchise quarterbacks, not in the 1st round anymore or the 2nd round. They're going to wait later and later and later into the draft, and they're going to do a lot better job of evaluating. So, Brock Purdy, what a comeback, and he looks good, and hopefully he can stay healthy throughout the entire season. And yeah, man, it's great to have football back, and I just hope that I don't make any more wild takes, because I know all my wild takes have been just flushed down the toilet the last several weeks due to injuries and all that stuff. I mean, look at the Texas Rangers. I made a take on them, and they've completely collapsed in September.
Man. Well, before Isaiah, we'll let you go. I want to quickly show you something to maybe cheer you up after the Rogers.
Bang, bang, not a game.
Great
Yes,
video.
Sir.
Yes, sir.
Yep. So, all right. Well, that will conclude for tonight's program on Kicking with Kruse. Great show for tonight. Like I said, extra point tomorrow night with Loro, and my show back up again on Thursday. We'll have pretty much like 2 hours for that one, with a lot more stuff than that one. So, without further ado, this has been Kruse. We got Isaiah Way on here. Have a good night, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow on the Extra Point.
Oh my God! Big goal to go from the 2. Toss sweep one for James White. Cuts it up to the right arm. Cuts it upfield. Driving forward. Diving to the goal line. A touchdown and a title for the Patriots. I can't believe it. Play clock at 5. Pass is intercepted at the goal line by Malcolm Butler. 45 remaining. Tatum drives down and throws it down. Bases loaded. 2 out. Hard hit into right. Back at the wall. Tie game. Big Puppy.
No icing. For the first time in 39 years, the Boston Bruins have won the Stanley Cup.
Anything's possible.